We talk about Uncle Sam on this episode of the Everything is a Primary Source podcast. As a fellow educator, I know that taking our social studies classes to historical sites and museums can be a rewarding experience for everyone involved. But between coordinating transportation, keeping track of permission slips, and paying out of pocket for unforeseen expenses, it can also be a large task for a busy teacher. The Everything is a Primary Source to Go artifact borrowing service replicates the most engaging part of a museum field trip, and that's interacting with real historic objects directly in your classroom, but without the process and cost of taking your class off campus. The Everything is a Primary Source archive contains ephemera and physical objects dating from the 1820s onward, with emphasis on the 20th century. Pre-made and curated kits pull from the collection and are designed to complement your curriculum, just as the exhibits at your favorite cultural center do. Visit everything-history.com to learn more about EPS to Go and how it can help you bring the museum to your classroom. Welcome to the Everything is a Primary Source podcast, the show where we navigate history through popular culture. I'm your host, Eric Salmonson. I'm a social studies teacher, historian, and pop culture enthusiast. Each episode, I sit down with everyday people to discuss the media, objects, places, and events that shape us and reveal what they say about the past, as well as who we are now. The Everything is a Primary Source podcast is, therefore, your history, my history, our history through popular culture. So Megan Philbrook is joining us today on the Everything's a Primary Source podcast. And if you follow Instagram, you probably recognize her name. Or if you just read the newspapers in New England, you recognize the name for sure because she's recently been named as a New Hampshire Teacher of the Year for 2026. So a belated congratulations, Megan.
Thank you so much, Eric. I'm so excited.
And welcome to the podcast. And I always get confused when people ask me, how long have you been teaching for? We teachers start our school year in the last 2/3 of the year in September. So I'm like, wait, school years are always like, this one's like 25, 26. Mm-hmm. And you've been named the 26th Teacher of the Year, correct?
Correct. And I am practicing it. I am the 2026 New Hampshire State Teacher of the Year. Which means I have a month and a half, and then I am at the helm taking over for the 2025 Teacher of the Year, who is a high school Spanish teacher, Candice DeAngelis.
So when you walk us through the whole process, you were nominated by some students, correct? Yeah. And then what happened from there? What happened to...
Sure. So my former 8th grade students who are now high school students, I'm not sure what exactly had possessed them to look up teacher awards or, they're teenage boys, so they are more about action than words. But I did get a very exciting email from the New Hampshire Department of Education acknowledging that I had been nominated and asking me if I would like to apply. And that first phase is a pretty lengthy application with teaching evidence, letters of recommendation, several essays with a pretty small word count. You would think they'd want to really get to know you a lot, but they want you to make sure that you are a concise writer and speaker. And then from there, we met probably, I think it was April or May for the first phase. And that was very much a meet and greet. There's a couple of sessions led by different members of the selection committee. I think my standout moment, if I had to think about that day again, was they asked us to do a mini lesson. And my thing is active teaching strategies and getting learners involved in the verb that is learning. It requires a lot of movement and discussion and collaboration. And so I had 5 minutes to prepare. I had some other teachers with me who had also been nominated, and they had wanted to take it in a different direction. And I said, look, we need to do something that is going to show off our skills. And so we did a little trade simulation, and that was so much fun. And then I found out about a a week and a half maybe after that, that I was a semifinalist and then down to a finalist. And here we are.
So that was sort of like I'm picturing a lot of those challenge game shows like on the cooking channel, right? Where they're like
Yeah.
ingredients, go make this. It seems along the same lines of like here's, make something and
Yeah.
it's like all of your skills, all of your experience, everything just kind of like came out right then and you put together this great lesson.
Yeah. It was definitely like a hot seat moment, but I think as educators, we, after so many years, and I am in year 12 of teaching, we essentially know what our thing is. You're the primary source guy. I'm the active teaching lady. We become kind of known for something towards that more veteran era of our career, and then that's our strength. So in that moment, that was what I drew from, and I think it worked out really well. Luckily, the next phase plays to one of my strengths as well, which is public speaking. And as historians, we're pretty used to speaking to big audiences, sometimes about something that's not the most fascinating to others that we are passionate about. So I'd like to think I did pretty good in that one as well.
Well, I think that the award itself says volumes that you did
Yeah.
do great.
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
things. We encountered each other. We crossed paths back in the summertime because I was
Hmm.
my EPS to go kits, and you did a test drive of one of them, and
Yeah.
then reached out to me and said, "Hey, this might be really good for the showcase lesson plan." And so I probably received a very similar feeling that you did when you got that initial email from the Department of Education of like that electric feeling of like, wow, somebody is interested in these kinds of what I came up with and have been promoting.
Yeah, well, I think in that kind of active teaching method is that connection with my students to outside opportunities. Going above just our standards in the state of New Hampshire is really, really important to grab our learners and engage them. And I think that's what your kits really do. It's a museum in a box that comes to your classroom that makes our teaching lives so much easier. So once I had my first taste of your kits, I knew that there's something here that that we social studies teachers really need to draw upon more. So that finalist visit is your last round to kind of show off and showcase what you can do and why you should be New Hampshire Teacher of the Year. And with my primary source kit, I would like to think, of course, that I definitely wowed the selection committee. There was just something in there for every single person that came to visit, and my students were right in the history, and you couldn't ask for more. So I got to thank you too.
And it's we can go back and forth for the next 10 minutes. Thank
Yeah.
you. Right, because this is all very much going back and forth. But you touched on something very important that I think is, when I've gone to conferences and reached out to teachers in our state and beyond, one of the questions that often comes up is which standards are met, which standards are addressed in these things. But you said it so well just then. If we go beyond the standards, if we're
Hmm.
things that then yeah, you can actually just check down the boxes. You're like, okay, yeah, collaboration, let's see, communication, cause and effect, all the different social studies, all the different competencies that we're trying to work with our students. If we are doing our job as social studies teachers, being social,
Hmm.
that's going to be a no-brainer. Those standards are met and surpassed. And I also love that you are always looking out for opportunities. It's not just whatever comes up when you Google a subject. It's, hey, I just heard about this thing at the local library. Or
Yeah.
recently that you had for what, the second year in a row, Battlefield Trust. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, there are so many entities out there. Don't get me started. We could talk for hours, but there are so many, especially in our field, especially in the preservation of history and looking at civics. And this is a big year for us social studies teachers. It's a semi-quincentennial. And so that has just created a boom of free resources that, entities want to make sure that we are preparing our students to understand the magnitude of the 250th of our country. So there's so much out there. I received the American Battlefield Trust traveling trunk. I got a field trip grant to take my students to the Boston Freedom Trail. And it requires a little bit of legwork, but I think as teachers, we have to be opportunists. We have to just run with something, a free resource, and make sure that our kids have these beautiful experiences in classrooms.
It's like if you were in another field, if you were in, say, broadcasting, or if you were in public relations, or working at in hospitality, I feel like you would do the same kinds of things, but for the benefit of those places, right? You'd be reaching out
Yeah.
to get the best guests for your talk show, or you would be making sure that you had a remote opportunity, or that your hotel was stocked with, the finest accoutrements in each room, because you made those connections, you put in that legwork, and it's those kinds of details that put, whether it be your classroom, your TV channel, your hotel chain, above the rest.
Well, absolutely. And you compared us to public relations and hospitality, but I feel like those are ingrained in who we are as teachers. 100%. It is all about PR at schools right now. It is all about hospitality and making sure that our kiddos are well taken care of and nurtured. And then I think there's, kind of this culture in the Granite State. We're both from New Hampshire, of outdoor recreation and making sure that our kids are appreciating our beautiful landscape. That's a huge part of what I do as well, is making sure that they get amazing Granite State experiences, whether it is, that quintessential field trip to the State House or Odeon Point or all of these, got to do's in New Hampshire. That's a huge part of it as well.
And I mean, you are the New Hampshire Teacher of the Year, and you've been in touch with Teachers of the Year in other states as well. That's part of your responsibilities, I imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Ambassador for our educational program. And you get a lot of opportunities to compare and contrast with other teachers. And one thing that is absolutely true, and I've talked to other teachers around the country as well, is New Hampshire, our Department of Education matches the spirit and the size of our state. We're not a big state. We have
Yeah.
1.7 million, if that, many people in the state.
Hmm.
We are geographically small. We have all those different components. And then, not to mention the attitude of live free or die, very much, kind of do your own thing. It shows itself in our educational opportunities too, right? And with the way that we run education in this state. So while there may be some things that are not provided for that you would have in larger states,
Hmm.
also have that, hey, here's this great big canvas that is the state of New Hampshire. One of the reasons people love living here is because within a short drive, just today I was just over the Connecticut River in Vermont, and within an hour and a half, I was back in my area of the other side of the state. It's super
Yeah.
navigable. Is that a word?
We are.
And you have the mountains, you have the lakes, you have the seacoast, you have access to Boston, you have the
Mhm.
southern tier. If you like Massachusetts, you can
Yep.
visit Massachusetts without you leaving New Hampshire. You just, go to those southern tier cities, and
Hmm.
you have so much diversity as far as geography and way of life. And you can just do that. That's part of the education.
Hmm. Yeah, well, and it's part of our education as well. I think that I have always felt like there's a large amount of autonomy for teachers, and that I can say to my principal, I want to order this amazing kit and I want to get to my classroom. Can you reimburse it? It's inexpensive. It's going to be awesome. And we have that autonomy to get it into my classroom and to try a wide variety of other resources as well. So we may be small, but I think that we're able to make big choices for our students that have a greater impact than maybe if we were a larger state where there was even more mandates. Where I think we're really, really lucky. I always say, like, I am living the Granite State dream. I grew up here. I was educated in the SAU 53 school district, Pembroke, New Hampshire, and I had amazing educational experiences. I'm a teacher because of that. So I think we're so lucky. We're so lucky to live here.
One of the things that New Hampshire also stands out for the same reasons, small state, diverse
Mhm.
geography, is the presidential primary election. And one of the reasons
Yeah.
so many presidential hopefuls like to come here is because they can get a great understanding of the electorate just by visiting different towns and regions in New Hampshire. So, symbols of our subject today, Uncle Sam, may very well be surrounding these things because ultimately, this Uncle Sam with his top hat of the stars and stripes and a blue coat of stars and pants of stripes and his white beard and everything is symbolic of the federal government, the very government they're going to lead. Plus, the guy he was based on, I don't know if he actually dressed like that or not.
No,
um,
no, he didn't.
Oh, he didn't? Okay. I'll
No,
set off my notes. So he's originally from New Hampshire, and that's who we're going to talk about today as a primary source.
absolutely. I am super enthusiastic to talk about this American symbol, this icon, because just as I think we were just talking about what is quintessential New Hampshire, you have to answer what is quintessential United States of America. And in one of your most recent episodes, there was the assertion that George Washington is the most well-known American figures. And if I can assert, I think that Uncle Sam is probably that number two figure. Not his originator, the real person who kind of inspired the Uncle Sam, but just him as this figure of American government.
I have a feeling, and I was thinking about this today, that embedded in the image of Uncle Sam, that there is a little bit of Washington in there, the white hair,
Yeah,
a little bit of Lincoln in there too, with the
the
beard
height, the height and the beard. Yeah,
and the stove pipe hat that he wears.
yeah,
Uh, so he was a real person, and he's my understanding of the legend of this guy named Uncle Sam is that he supplied American troops with rations, meat and things during the War of 1812, and
yep.
his initial, the stamping of US on their crates, they would joke that this is a package from Uncle Sam. And
Yeah, that's the gist.
came about because his name was Samuel.
Mhm.
That's where that term Uncle Sam came from. But his first appearance as a character described the way that we just did in cartoons was not until I think the 1830s. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, for sure. And your gist story, the summary is fantastic. Samuel Wilson, I think he was actually born in Massachusetts. His childhood home was in Mason, New Hampshire. We got that lovely connection before he lived out the majority of his adulthood and died in Troy, New York. He was a meat packer and a very, very important one at that because he did inspect meat barrels of beef supplies that went over to serve soldiers in the War of 1812. And um, meat packers don't often get the best rap sheet in American history, but I think Samuel Wilson is probably the most favored of them all. Because when those barrels came to troops who were fighting the British again, it said U.S. on it, and they joked that it was Uncle Sam sending them their ration.
That War of 1812 connection, I think, is very important to have the U.S. initials being referred to as Uncle Sam because, like you said, we're fighting the British again. This, in many ways, is the true final proof of an American Revolution has taken place, that we have our own country and have our own society. And as such, part of having that own identity is perhaps developing a figure, some kind of entity that we can all rally behind. When the first time he appears in print as a caricature or a character in the 1850s, it's correct also to a time where nations of the world were, sort of like having their own uh, personification of themselves. John Bull in England. It's the only one I
Mhm.
can. But Uncle Sam is like the American version of John Bull. But it's not just America, the people, because that's always been the job of Columbia, right?
Hmm.
That seems to be the figure that is um, the the we the people.
Hmm.
Sam is the government, and so later on, Thomas Nast, who is the famous cartoonist who took down the Tweed Ring, the political machine out of New York,
Hmm.
with his illustrations, he also gave us Santa Claus, if I'm not mistaken. The
He, I think yeah, he did as well. Although that one doesn't stand out to me as much as Uncle Sam. But yes, he did give us Santa Claus, or our modern depiction of what he looks like.
the red suit and the white
Yeah.
beard. I guess he liked white beards in his characters. And so it's like that has always meant to mean the federal government
Hmm.
is the way I've always taken Uncle Sam the character.
And I think that's most proven in that World War One, I want you for the US Army depiction as well. So I think that, and especially when you study like American imperialism and how Uncle Sam is often sitting on the globe with a grab bag, just um, pulling up colonies for the United States and pulling up territories. That's certainly that's he represents America there, the government.
It's not like,
Oh.
the I want you World War I is probably the closest we'll get to a favorable depiction of Uncle Sam. He's usually portrayed very goofy, ridiculous, over the top embellishments of him, as it's a very American thing to criticize the government, right? To kind of point at it and say, ha ha ha, look how silly these people are. And this government is, it's that I want you thing is really the only one that shows the stern Uncle Sam, like the serious Uncle Sam. And the rest of it just seems to be, hey, how ridiculous can we make this guy? So on the screen right now, and I'll share these when I put out the podcast. These are some of my favorite Uncle Sam um, cartoons. One of
Hmm.
them is from actually two of them are from the era you were just describing, the turn of the century imperialism era. And here we have Uncle Sam with President McKinley
Yeah.
looking at all of these new former Spanish colonies turned American. Well, he's deciding if he wants to eat them like a meal, right? What
Yeah.
do I have next on my plate? And
Yeah.
then to kind of go along with that, here's another cartoon from the same time period, which shows Uncle Sam growing from the an infant in 1783 to a teenager, young adult. Then he gets to be like a middle-aged man. He looks kind of like he has a paunch to him by 1898. And
Yeah.
1899 with a battleship under his arm and a bunch of hands reaching out to him with labeled all these different
Colonies. Yep.
businesses and everything. With he's smoking his cigar, looking very portly, but also kind of cocky and arrogant. And then here's one that I always like to use. It's from 1929, and we have Santa Claus in his full red. I mean, it's black and white image, but his
Hmm.
uh, suit and everything with the words "normal stock market" on a tray. So in kind of like a gift, like a delivery of like food almost. Well, it's saying just what he wanted. This is right after the stock market crash, and I use this one on my tests when I teach US history, saying why would the government want a normal stock market in December
Mm.
1929? Why would that be a gift given to them as of, going on 2 months after the crash of Wall Street and of the stock exchange? Well, so here we have the meeting of two political cartoon characters in one drawing, and both of them symbolizing different ideas correct to our culture and our relationship and understanding of the government.
And my one of my favorite ones, you don't have there, but I do really, really love the Dr. Seuss political cartoons. I just think that it's such a interesting thing to pull up with my students, someone who they know as being kind of this caricature of like children's interests,
Mhm.
but someone who made so much political commentary through his illustrations, especially those World War II ones of Uncle Sam just being in America and enjoying his time and not having a care in the world. And across in Europe, you've got some pretty strong statements in those illustrations of, his characters mad with the Italian mumps or fascist fever. And oh, there they are. Yeah, all of those.
So the way that this podcast works is we choose, in this case, we have our subject, Uncle Sam,
Mhm.
who, like some media, a lot of media, in fact, I would say like comic book characters, we'll just go with that. Comic book characters like Superman
Hmm.
has changed over the years. He's a
So
ref
much so. So much so.
all these characters have changed as a reflection of the world going on around him. Uncle Sam is unique because unlike those comic book characters, like I couldn't just draw a Batman comic myself. I would get in trouble with DC Comics.
Yeah.
I'd copyright infringement. I can draw if I'm a cartoonist, Uncle Sam, and he has been displayed not only on
So
print.
many times.
Here's this character that anybody can use. We all agree what he stands for, but he shows up in all of these different situations. And over the course of, we're going on over 200 years now, almost 200 years of Uncle Sam being part of our common collective zeitgeist. What behaviors and ideas? So that's what we do here. We take this character and we apply what we would to like a museum artifact, those questions to it. So I have a question. What behaviors and ideas are conveyed with Uncle Sam?
Uh, at any given time, I think the biggest thing when you look at him in a cartoon or just a depiction, is what do the American people feel about the US government at that given time? And I think it's interesting that you just mentioned that anyone can draw Uncle Sam and anyone can use him. There's only one time when the government has used them of their own accord, and that was for military recruitment. And in all of their cases, it is some group of people making a statement about how they feel about our country. And so, in terms of behavior, and you mentioned how, our right to criticize the government is most American, and however people choose to portray Uncle Sam at any given time is a part of our American ideals here.
He is sometimes portrayed as the good guy. I was
Yep.
going to say valiantly, but he's never really valiant. He's just, like I
No,
said,
you never see him kind of like taking up arms on his own or anything like that. He's kind of that uncle that shows up at family Christmas and eats all the food and takes a nap on the couch. I think that's how he's often most portrayed.
that's a good depiction of him.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people wouldn't even think twice if somebody drew a series of comics that showed that.
No. No.
Workly say like, well, yeah, it's Congress. There he is,
Yeah.
like, taking in but not doing, and then falling asleep on the job and not carrying out.
Hmm.
We and as a constitutional republic, maybe we could go even further and say he's not just simply the federal government and all of its workings. Maybe he's actually representative of the Congress itself.
Mm,
As each star on his jacket reflects each one of the states that sends representatives to Congress. And
yeah.
that might even be another concept behind this is that if we did a full breakdown, I know there's not 50 stars around his hat, so that might
No.
be 13. And then we go, but his coat, the rest of the we could even get deeper with that. Like think about his head, right? On like almost like a crown on his head, the original states, and then the rest of them are kind of like keeping him shrouded around. I don't know. Maybe I'm going too deep with old Uncle
I
Sam.
think you're going too deep. I think that's in our nature too, as historians. We often look at everything as a symbol, and sometimes it is just is what it was.
It's a little bit too far in. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a problem I've been dealing with for most of my life is like, oh, I go this far. Oh, I got good stuff. I'll go even further. Oh, I went too close. All I can see is you know, the closest possible version. And it doesn't always tell you anything.
Well, I think personally, as I was going through the teacher of the year process, I kept telling myself it has to be a history teacher. It has to be a history teacher. 2026, the semi-quincentennial, it has to be a historian. How symbolic. New Hampshire colony, super involved in the American Revolution. And like I was just hyping myself up in that same way that you discuss, like this lens that we always have. And it's just a part of our nature as social studies teachers is to teach the symbols and to get our students to find the meaning when maybe there is not as much meaning as we had hoped.
Want to bring history to life in your classroom? With everything as a primary source to go, you can borrow real historical artifacts from the last 200 years, shipped right to your school. It's hands-on history, paired with ready-to-use lesson plans and classroom activities that make the past come to life for you and your students. Whether you're teaching the Industrial Revolution all the way up through the Communication Revolution, there's something in our collection for every era. Visit everything-history.com/EPS to go and start transforming your teaching today. That's everything-history.com/EPS to go, because history belongs in your hands. Why do you think that Uncle Sam has persisted for so long, whereas I mentioned before, Columbia,
She didn't, yeah.
outside of the motion picture company at the beginning of a movie, but it
Yeah,
drawings, I mean, she's everywhere pretty much up until World War One.
yeah,
And after that, she fades away, whereas Uncle Sam, I
has
bet.
persevered. Well, I'd even taught the New Hampshire Kid Governor program for fifth graders. It's all about teaching kids about democracy and about our rights to vote. And the fifth graders get to send up candidates and vote for which one, and they have a campaign, and it's adorable. But I even pulled a book off my bookshelf, and it was an ABC book. D is for democracy, and the main character reading through all the letters is Uncle Sam. And the first question is, guys, do you even know who this is? And they do. At 10 years old, they do. Um, so I don't know if it is just the persistence of people maintaining to continue to draw him and feature him. I don't know if I mean, doesn't he always show up in a Super Bowl commercial?
I'm sure at least something involving.
Yeah, like something involving him. A beer company always uses Uncle Sam, I feel like. So, and maybe it's just that persistence and that ease. I mean, Columbia is, I mean, she's not as easy to depict. She's very, very intricate. Her outfit is so like beautiful. And Uncle Sam is more of that kind of American spirit of he's just there's an ease about Uncle Sam. So maybe it's partially that as well.
Liberty is another one that has stayed around. A
Mm-hmm.
really big statue to her in New York Harbor, so that might help.
Yeah.
She's depicted in cartoons a lot, along with Uncle Sam. Sometimes they're
Mm-hmm.
interacting with each other. You know, she can be and has been kind of made silly as well. I've seen different depictions of Liberty with, instead of the torch in a hand, she might have like a tray of French fries or,
Yeah.
uh, uh, I wonder though if it's because of some kind of sanctity with those other characters that there is, that going back to we're allowed to ridicule the government, but imagine if we, the people, or the concept of liberty were ridiculed. That
Yeah.
flies easily, right? You could
No.
liberty being trampled on by uh somebody like Kaiser Wilhelm or something like that, and people would be like, yes, that's a propaganda piece
Mm-hmm.
to rally against the Germans in the First World War. You could have Uncle Sam getting enormously fat and everyone's like, ha ha ha, but that wouldn't really work so well with the other ones. And so
I don't I don't think so. Maybe there is, I mean, not that I want to go into it, but maybe there is a gender aspect into it as well.
could be,
Maybe.
yeah. And that we don't want to, the fair sex doesn't get as much disdain as this guy with his weird wispy beard and frizzy hair and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You mentioned at the beginning George Washington, and I just happened to have on my desk this one of, I mean, you could have countless amounts of books about George Washington. This one came from 1931, and it's called George Washington, the Second Mile American. And on the opening page of it is one of the many statues you would find
Mhm.
of George Washington. And you have, of course, in Washington, the city named for him, um, memorials. The Washington Monument is the centerpiece of that city. You have depictions of him. They used to have a statue of him looking much like Zeus sitting on a throne that used to be in the Capitol Rotunda, pointing up through the oculus there.
Mhm.
He has been made into this untouchable figure. Is
Mhm.
that George Washington, you don't, he is the reason, he's the father of the country. And if he does appear in media, it's usually with some kind of, pomp and
Bravado. Yeah.
Uncle Sam might be like the punching bag version of him, right? Like if we have Washington that we can, I mean, because as I was discussing on that recent episode about how Washington is usually depicted in media, it's in painting, and he is once again shown with that kind of air of almost like a religious figure,
Mhm.
that he is of that importance to the country's history. And so fine art is where you're going to find George Washington. You're not going to find too much fine art. And you can imagine a portrait of Uncle Sam, right? In the Capitol building, in the main uh, rotunda building. Here's our Uncle Sam. No, no, no. He's the guy
Yeah.
that we can poke fun at.
He is. And I think that's isn't that what the Americans often need though? The American people is we need that figure that's going to be a camaraderie piece, a talking point. I mean, you and I can probably talk about George Washington on and on and on. But that's not the majority of the American people. They obviously look up to George Washington and know of his greatness and what he did for the country. But Uncle Sam is more of like I just mentioned sports, and I think Uncle Sam is more on that entertainment aspect than that American figure like George Washington.
Have you ever seen that episode? It's the penultimate episode of Frasier, where they are going. It's a kind of a weird episode. It's called Croc Tales, and it's all about the this like ceramic crock that used to be full of cheese and how it's played a role in many years. So it's like a flashback type episode of Frasier and how it's like been passed on through the years since when his father first moved in with him in Seattle. And at one point, it's 4th of July, and Frasier is dressed up as Uncle Sam because KACL is going to be in the 4th of July parade, and Roz is playing. She's like Betsy Ross, right? So for some reason, it's like revolutionary character, and then some guy that had nothing to do with the revolution. And at one point, Fraser's dad says like, he's like, do the thing I asked you to do. And he's like, I want you, as moves and everything. Well, it's like the hottest day of the year. They get locked out on Fraser's balcony, and they can't get back in. And so everybody's like, steaming, and so at one point, uh, they say something about, well, why don't you just take off one of your pieces of your clothing? He's like, I am not even supposed to have this zipper on his, and I'm like, by this point, when you're wearing a bedazzled striped pants, bedazzled star jacket, and this silly hat. Historical accuracy is out the window. Like you're not even
No,
concerned about like not supposed to have a zipper. You're not. It's such a silly thing. Interestingly, Kelsey Grammer, who plays Fraser Crane, played George Washington in a made-for-TV movie about Benedict Arnold. So he's been both sides of it, right?
that's funny.
Isn't that crazy though? Like to think that somebody would have Uncle Sam as this.
Pedestal.
It exists, but I don't think anybody's too concerned about that costume being, anachronisms with, oh, we can't have zippers involved at Uncle Sam.
I think that as, America faces its next challenge, I think that Uncle Sam is always gonna be there in a way as that weird uncle that always shows up at family Christmas. And what it's just gonna I grow with the times. And we can definitely look at just all of the cartoons throughout the Gilded Age, then Reconstruction and World War One, World War Two, the Vietnam War, how he's depicted. And it's just always such a sign of kind of what is going on in the homes of the American people and schools as well, because we teach a lot of Uncle Sam, whether we think about it or not. He was featured in the slideshow that my students put together about Veterans Day last week. So he's just so properly iconic America.
I think about his being mentioned in that song. I think it's also from the First World War. I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy. Like,
Yeah.
Doodle Dandy. And something like, I'm a great nephew of my own Uncle Sam, born on the 4th of July.
Yeah.
Like he is part of that. Like, if you're going to be a patriotic,
Hmm.
back some time ago, I don't see as much anymore, but people are really interested in putting up like banners out front of their houses in
Hmm.
American flag or sometimes in lieu of an American flag. And if it was like Halloween's coming, you'd have like a jack-o'-lantern on your banner. Or
Hmm.
I remember around 4th of July, they would sell ones that would have like his top hat with fireworks coming out of it, which I'm not sure if he actually did carry around fireworks in his top hat, but he is one of those characters that shows up 4th of July. There's gonna be an Uncle Sam, maybe on stilts, coming down in a parade. Um, it's like a standard, kind of figure. So he's worn the same clothes for years, most of the time. Going back to his buddy Santa Claus, right? We've seen some updating on Santa Claus lately. If you watch those Target commercials, they made
Yeah, he looks a little different nowadays.
Santa Claus. Do you think that we'll ever see Uncle Sam get a makeover?
No, and I don't want him to. No, I don't. I mean, that's probably the historian in me as well. I think he's worn probably the same outfit since probably the Civil War. And has always been kind of that tall, gaunt, sometimes gaunt figure. When he's being made fun of, he's certainly a different size, but I don't want him to. I think that so much adapts and grows and change as a country ages. And I think I kind of want to hope that we'll keep a few things the same.
I would love to see it would be fun to have either a comic strip, like somebody just like take on it instead of just like single frame political cartoons, Uncle Sam the comic strip or Uncle Sam the cartoon drawn that way, and just kind of like have the character have like a life of his own, like, and then you could really, like we said before, with him taking a nap on your couch and all that kind of stuff, you
Hmm.
have throughout it like this allegory constantly of that's the federal government. And because the way
Or an allegory for each state. Could you imagine if each state had to personalize an Uncle Sam?
yeah, that'd be fun to see.
Yeah.
I bet we could. That'd be a fun challenge. That would be a really good one for 250th. Or, I mean, and this is something that probably will never happen either for the same reason, because Uncle Sam has always become, I mean, he is the United States. and the United States as the title of the federal government. So the Union.
Hmm.
He therefore um, removes all need for individual states because to have their own personifications. I've seen silly things on like Instagram or BuzzFeed or something like that. If every state was a person, like how would they act? And after a while, it just becomes like you're a stereotype of somebody from this state. But no, like imagine if each state had its own version of a person, like an Uncle Sam.
Hmm.
It would be eh, kind of a futile thing because that's kind of the antithesis of having a United States is that
Yeah.
we have this one figure that represents all of us. But I do like your idea of the interpretation of Uncle Sam.
Well, I bet I mean you would also want to think is what would each state hold true? What would we all keep the same about him? Would it be his imposing height? Would it be the long white beard that we often, think of a character that we do look up to and respect, that age, that wisdom? Would we all keep the elements of the red, white, and blue? And it would be interesting to see kind of what would maintain as the original.
His connection to the military and
Hmm.
things like that. So, states that have a significant either military presence in them or a lot of veterans that come from that state, they might see him one way as the original way, the Uncle Sam as what keeps us going, right? That
Yeah,
supplies
yeah.
us and allows us to exist, Uncle Sam, versus somebody who, if you have a state that has, notorious bad relations, a place like Alaska, where people actually, even though it was created by Uncle Sam, by the government,
Hmm.
by Washington, a lot of people remove themselves from the rest of the United States to be as far as possible from Uncle Sam and
Yeah.
the city that he resides from. So it'd be like, what's their version of it? We have like, I think about the Muppets a lot. Just side note, no, actually, the
Yeah.
character of Sam the Eagle, he's named that.
Hmm.
He's meant to be like the American Eagle, and he acts all stern and very patriotic, and everything American is good. And he wouldn't have got that name had it not been for this version of it. So it's like, yeah, how do we all perceive this one character, and is that a reflection of our understanding of our connection to the government?
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's just I think I said it in the beginning. He's just iconic for so many different reasons. And I think our ability to commentate on him is also Uncle Sam in its nature. Um, so I think we're lucky to have him.
So too, and I like your use of the word iconic there because that's what he is. He
Mhm.
is a portrait of something, a larger concept portrayed in a very simple, usually illustration. So, Megan, thank you so much for taking the time to
Of course.
not only about Uncle Sam, but to give us a overview of what it means to be the New Hampshire Teacher of the Year. I'll say it again. Congratulations on this.
Thank you.
What do you have in the pipeline as far as your duties that you have to carry out as New Hampshire Teacher of the Year?
So I get to be a yes person with the understanding that I am still maintaining my teaching position, which is my top passion, of course, with some wiggle room to present at conferences, to be guests on podcasts, to be interviewed, and to really represent New Hampshire as they need a teacher figure. So I'll be able to do some really cool stuff with the other teachers of the year. We are all invited to NASA's space camp over the summer. I know, I know. So I'm very looking forward to some of those additional opportunities because I think I'm all about bringing back to my classroom, and I know that this is going to open up a big doorway right into room 243. So I'm very excited.
We're excited for you, and I can't thank you enough for not only using the kits and piloting those and showcasing those in your classroom, but also appearing on the Everything's a Primary Source podcast.
Thank you. Yeah.
Popular culture, by definition, connects and unites us and proves that people of different backgrounds, in fact, have a lot in common with one another. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, at least in part, for that reason. If it connects with you and you'd like to add to it, or any of the podcast episodes, just visit everything-history.com and search for the Everything's a Primary Source project, which can be found in the classroom section of the website. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Be sure to rate and share this podcast wherever you are listening to it now, and follow Everything as a Primary Source on social media, including YouTube and especially Instagram. Thank you for listening to the EPS podcast, where everything is a primary source.